Welcome to the Spaces virtual conference on the theme of Net Zero Carbon Climate Emergency 2021. My name is Alex G and I'm the chair for this webinar. Before commencing with my introduction to our speaker, I'd like to thank our 5 sponsors: Atkins, Faithful & Gould, IES, the MPS Group and Wilmot Dixon for their support. All the webinars over the 2-week period are being recorded and will be loaded to the Spaces YouTube channel. Delegates and Spaces members will be sent a link at the end of the conference. The recordings are only available to delegates and Spaces members. If you have any questions during the course of this webinar, please include them in the chat box and we'll try to answer them towards the end of the presentations. This morning's webinar is the rise of environmental, social and governance, ESG, in the real estate market and how digital twins will help. The session will be presented by Sadaf Askari, the Intelligent Communities Lifecycle Manager for IES. Sadaf holds a master's degree in the field of architecture and urban design from UCL and a bachelor's degree in urban engineering. She also holds a data science diploma. IES uses the integration of digitized physics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to help decision makers create a digital twin of any community or group of buildings in order to analyze all the various decarbonization options, identify and weigh up the risks and potential savings prior to implementation, and monitor progress towards net zero targets over the time. Sadaf will be taking us through the challenges of digital twinning and has asked that you complete the poll on your screen during the course of the presentation. Sadaf, welcome, and thank you for supporting the Spaces 21 conference. The floor is yours for your presentation.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and having the opportunity to present to you what are the challenges and opportunities for the rise of ESG in the real estate market and how technology, specifically digital twin, can help. I would start with, I know there is a poll, but I would start with my presentation. I would appreciate if you can answer the poll's questions so we would know what is the main reason you are on this call, so we could answer your questions and your needs better. To start, I am in charge of ICL partner management, and we are dealing with ESG KPIs inside IES. In this presentation, I want to actually discuss the what, why, and how. We have this opportunity to do things better post-pandemics, and there are many drivers, mainly emerging drivers such as legal and sustainability factors that make us have better, healthy, sustainable, green, equitable environment. And that's the why of this specific conversation. We as an organization, our mission has always been on the how. So I will discuss what it is that the how can incorporate and examples of some of the real world projects that the how has been implemented as part of that. To start, before going into ESG, environmental, social, and governance framework, I just want to say what are the general drivers of net zero greenhouse gas emissions in the recent years. We had this climate emergency, which prompted a number of governments worldwide to affirm commitments to net zero greenhouse gas emission by 2050 and China 2060. Then the pandemic hit, which has highlighted other opportunities and threats. And in response to that, the Build Back Better campaign was launched, with a response from governments in their 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution. The EU Green Deal has been in place since the beginning of the year. The International Well Buildings Institute launched their new health and safety rating, aimed at providing a certification to reassure employees and customers that it's safe to return back to the office, school, hotels in the aftermath of COVID and beyond. And another very, very important drivers that recently the focus of 2021 has been on it is the environmental, social, and governance framework. This is deriving from the TCFD, the science-based target that has been defined in Paris Agreement, and this year environmental, social, governance KPIs, the environmental bits is the most important part to discuss. But what is ESG? You know, we can't talk about acronyms without knowing exactly what it is that we're speaking of. ESG, which stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance, it's a very broad acronym that covers a variety of factors, that relevance of which largely depends on the sectors in question. So taking a step back and looking at what ESG actually means for property purposes, the E, environmental factors, considers aspects such as the energy efficiency and emissions of the building. The S, the social factors, include consideration around how properties impact society. For example, the health and well-being of occupiers and the local community. This area is likely to become even greater importance as a result of the fallout of COVID-19, and there will be a real requirement for property owners, employers to consider their buildings' impacts on the people using them. G is the governance factors, cover aspects such as diversity, culture, reputation in the real estate context, and it may apply to both the ultimate property owner as well as the occupier or any management companies or on-site staff. Again, in the current climate, governance is very under the microscope. In recent months, there have been a huge civil rights, anti-racism movement, such as like Black Lives Matter, and these sorts of campaigns have become part of this governance and has gained a very important place. But we want to know why ESG has become the focus for the time being. As mentioned, the legal landscape, considering one of the disclosure for UK Financial Conduct Authority actually announced a new rule that from 2021, all the major premium listed company has to ensure with climate-related disclosure aligned with the TCFD's framework. And TCFD is the science-based target that has been defined in Paris Agreement, and all the major real estate companies are coming under this umbrella. So they have to actually be able to oblige by the new rules. There is also financial benefits of having a green asset. So while some analysts are still skeptical about the greener building, how it attracts higher premium, it has been proven that green buildings actually has lots of financial benefits. More sustainable building can often generate lower long-term operational costs, attract higher rents and occupancy rate, and tend to see actually a quicker lease up and increase in capital value. On the other side, this is not relevant for this specific webinar, but whenever you want to actually, as a real estate investment trust or a company that needs bank to back up you for a specific project, you have to oblige by ESG, otherwise you won't be able to get investors to fund your project. Another important matter is actually ESG has become very, very important in real estate and construction sector. Just looking at the numbers, we would see that 40% of your UK total carbon footprint is actually coming from the built environment. This is a very large amount of number, which sometimes people think that automobile industry or those ones are the major players, and we would see that real estate and construction sector has a lot of has an important presence in increasing these emissions. I just want you to just look at the concept of like operational carbon, which is the emission that is coming from the building on the daily operation. It has been said that the emission that is coming from the building whole life cycle is as much as 70%, 75% of the embodied carbon. This is a lot of a massive number. It shows that from a very early stages of building life cycle, from design, operation, maintenance, we could have and we should actually reduce this number to make sure we are meeting the targets. So we speak about the why, and I very much like what Bill Gates recently said in one of his book, that we all know the why of the problem, but when it comes to the how, we are dealing with a very complex situation. We need disciplines such as biology, chemistry, physics, political science, economics, engineering, and other science to help us to actually look at the how. I first want to tell you what are the how in ESG in a very, very strategic format, and then go into the main concept, because this is something that you can build a framework once and apply it to the next building. But when it comes to the metric and target, this is the things that would be changing. So this, going to the detail of how, we want to have this forward-looking lens to develop a framework that clearly addresses the material, legal, physical, and the transitional risk and opportunity that exists and lie ahead. When we're discussing this in a building, this would be mainly obliging by the UN Sustainability Development Goals, the set of broad objectives, which have been underpinned for various social, economic, and environmental issues. That would be a very good starting point when we want to do things as such. Looking at a science-based target, scope 1, 2, 3, which defines the emissions inside the organization, in the supply chain, and the one that you're providing for your clients. So this is the governance and the strategy. Then we look at the risk management. Then we have to define the metrics and targets. And that's the place that technology needs to come in to know exactly where we're standing. ESG has been part of the all stages of the building life cycle. I don't want to go into the detail of that. I'm sure you all know what I mean by that. But we as an organization focus on the how. It has been said several times, if you even search that in Financial Times, in Times Magazine, in all the major journals out there, you would see that they're saying the technology is perceived the only way to create significant change within those real estate cooperation and assets. And that's something that ESG is putting forward, because we have to know exactly where we are to know where we are planning to go. So going back to us, why I'm giving you this presentation and why I'm even eligible to say such a thing. IES is the largest building analytics teams in the world. We have been in this business for more than 25 years. On a daily basis, more than 20,000 software users are using our technologies. There are in excess of 75,000 projects per year, modeled, defined with the use of our technology, and there are 1 million buildings globally that have been modeled and simulated using our VE softwares. We are very proud to say what we have provided for our partners and clients. We were able to actually reduce equivalents of 33 power stations It's like 33 power stations haven't been built and emitted any carbon in the atmosphere. In one of the things that's for ESG, we think that not only us, but actually a big organization such as Center of Digital Builds Britain, they all think for decarbonization, it's very good to have a realistic digital representation of asset process systems in built and natural environments. What distinguishes a digital twin from any other digital model or replica is its connection to its physical twin. So if you want to build those metrics and KPIs as defined in the ESG or other framework, you first have to know what is the exact situation. You need to have a good understanding of the physical assets. And then I'm saying about the physical assets and mainly the sustainability key performance indicators. I'm talking about a very complex system that your engineers need to sit and define that. But if you have a digital twin, it brings a wealth of useful application across the construction market and asset life cycle, acting as a bridge between the physical and the digital. So as the sensors become smaller and more affordable, the ability to gather processes, communicate information is increasing, making this interface between the two worlds actually very invaluable. And as mentioned, one area where digital twin can have a major impact is the decarbonization of the built environment. And so using the digital twin to decarbonize the built environment involve, it involves a combination of the capability of sensor technologies, machine learning, AI, and dynamic simulation modeling tools on a shared platform that provide a single point of, let's say, truth for multiple use cases and diverse stakeholders. The biggest challenge in developing a digital twin is accessing and managing data, which we are looking at different data types commonly found in physical assets. So in physical assets, it contains data from multiple systems in different formats with different governance models. The data management issues are amplified in large-scale campuses or community projects, and a single digital platform becomes essential to ensure that all these data that is needed for a specific framework or even your decarbonization roadmap is converted to actionable information, and that can be used for multiple stakeholders. The Institute of Technology, Engineering Technology, actually proposed the maturity spectrum of digital twin comprising of 5 elements, one of which is the reality capture. So that means like if you have a drawing, a sketch, photogrammetry, drones, as-built survey, this will become the first layer or zero layer of building a digital twin. The next layer would be the 2D map or the 3D model, which is object-based with no metadata or BIM. Then it goes to the static data, which you connect the model to persistent data, metadata, and BIM stage 2. So it's like documents, drawing, asset management system. The third layer would be like 5D simulations, so it's design, asset management, BIM stage 2, and this can be enriched with real-time data, as discussed in the previous slide, from IoT or sensing devices. There are two-way integration. What do I mean by that? So it's the remote and immersive operation. So it can control the physical from the digital. It can bring in the reality into the scenarios, and it can take it back to where it is. Our digital twin meet all the 4 levels in use on large-scale developments, and we have additional 5th level, which is the autonomous operation. This 5th level is very useful when it comes to decarbonization. So this is a complete self-governance. You would go for different scenarios, and you would be able to take it back to the physical asset and see what does that mean. And this would improve the performance of building systems through the interoperation. There are key elements of digital twin that can address different KPIs. We have 5 different components, and those 5 components, I think this shows it better than the previous one. So the digital twin provide a collaborative 3D urban design or master planning tools to actually analyze the baseline of a community's energy use and identify potential what-if scenarios for improvement at a scale. Here we see an analysis of solar panel, solar PV, for example, potential. For example, on the bottom left, you would see the digital twin is provided to do a dynamic simulation modeling environment that actually enable deep analysis of building performance, and that can be extended to cover the entire community. This model are then enhanced with the integration of operational data with the physical assets, and these are the key performance indicators needed for frameworks such as ESG. On the top right, you would see a wide range of dashboards, and it's actually, yeah, it has to be on this one. Yeah. So it shows a wide range of dashboard and display is provided that is very suitable for the need of different user. For example, you're an energy manager, you're comfortable handling and manipulating raw performance data, but you might be the city official, you just need to have a clear visualization of the complex system, and you do not want to go into the detail, and the platform has the capability to show it as needed for the stakeholder. This is the same for ESG KPIs, so that dashboard can be, because as mentioned for ESG, each of the KPIs has to correspond to the risk factor of that building. That can be defined in a way that it's customized for that specific building. So the digital twin provide a modeling and scenario analysis, so the complex community scale and resource network can be shown as part of this modeling. It also goes into the resource network analysis, which I'm not going to go into detail now. It's very technical, and I want to touch base on major informations that from now on we need to enclose as part of this framework. A very good thing about using a digital twin for dealing with decarbonization roadmap, or also dealing with wanting to make sure you're qualified for the ESG framework, is the idea that you can have a shared dynamic model that can be actually analyzed, manipulated, and visualized for multiple user perspective. For example, in large-scale projects, the span could be users from sustainability strategies to community residents. And I would show you some examples of how this has been used to be beneficial for both the users and the designers or the facility management on the site. So another question is, if we want to do the digitization investment, how do we start? The first question is, we want to have a high-level digitization of our portfolio. If you have multiple buildings or multiple assets, or even if it's just one building, we want to have an understanding of what it is that we are speaking of. And by that I mean, we want to have a broad digitization that shows the analysis of multiple sustainability metrics. So in a first glance, you want to make sure, if you choose this building to go into the detail, the building that you have chosen is the correct one. It's top of the priority. How do we do things now? We may use the schedule, the utility bills to define if this building needs to be decarbonized or not, or if the energy bills is high or not. But there are many other factors that, if we introduce as part of this portfolio, then we can deep dive look at the proof of concept, go to one or two buildings, start the process, do a shallow retrofit, deep retrofit, depending on what it is that you want to get out of that. And throughout this process, at the last stage, get the live digital twin portfolio. So what I'm trying to say is, if we want to get to we have a roadmap. We either define it as part of our ESG framework, or it's our decarbonization roadmap as part of the sustainability strategy that we have defined for our local authority, for our companies, or for our clients. There are different stages that we can get engaged. We don't need to have the live digital twin from very beginning. We can start from early stages, and there is always a very good energy conservation measures coming out of that to prove that what you're doing, it has the return of investments needed. Another interesting thing is the digital twin can be accessed in different levels. So all the portfolio of the building can be on the national, international level in one place. So if you want to get your, for example, ESG KPIs or any other KPIs, key performance indicators that you want to look at, sustainability, social, or governance, you can look at all of those in very large scale. Then you can go to the district level, city level, or going into the building level, looking at each of the equipment and seeing how each of these equipment is doing, and is it doing according to your sustainability roadmap, or you need to change them or tweak them to get to what you are planning to move. This high-level digitization, as I mentioned, this is how it goes. There is a data input that is coming from the utility bill, IoT data processing, BMS. It goes into this digital twin, which does the process of integration, CFD, different building physics modeling, and AI capabilities embedded into it. And it gives you the output, and that output can be taken to your the community members that are living there. It can be taken to the local authorities, can be taken to the engineers that it's needed to know what he has done or she has done for the strategy had showed at the end result, and what are the things that can be done. So this is a broad overview of what high-level digitization means. Also, in ESG, the focus have been ESG in built environment. The focus have been on the building of the future. We have 4 pillars for defining the building of the future. One of which is the sustainability. The other one is having a resilient building, hyper efficient and people centric. For each of those, there are 17 enablers and programs that define how to build these sorts of buildings. The digital twin in general will give you the tools to make sure you can actually assess, simulate, and model each of those, or even view the current situation and measure it against what needs to become. So different KPIs at the end of the day would be shown as a dashboard. This is a sample of one of our dashboards that shows the focus have been mainly on energy intensity usage, on gas network, and also on the social indicators. But this can be different for different building and different real estate investment trusts. I talked about the general idea of what ESG was and how digital twin can help, but I feel like it would be beneficial to see how digital twin have been used in some award-winning projects. One of which is this Living Lab Eco Campus, Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. In this project, there was a 3D visualization and master planning model in the very high level. And then we calibrated the model to get to the building performance that is needed, analyze the energy reduction technologies, and reach to the goal that it was defined by the sustainability strategy for that university.
With ambitions to become the greenest campus in the world by 2020, Nanyang Technological University have deployed IES's ICL technology across their 250-hectare flagship eco-campus in Singapore. Initially, IES created a master planning model of the entire campus site, accurate to 91% for total energy consumption. That model was then used as a baseline for high-level analysis on a number of energy reduction technology trials.
They had this vision. They wanted to improve the performance of their campus. They said, let's first create a very high-level master planning view on our campus and just tackle the low-hanging fruits. So are we using a set point that maybe is too low? So are we keeping the rooms at 17 degrees rather than more manageable 23, 24 degrees? Very simple intervention that already managed, after 1 year of, let's say, resetting all the parameters, they managed to save around 10%, 15% of the energy. This allowed them to analyze it, to test, to experiment the impact of changes, something that cannot really be easily replicated on site without using the digital twin.
In total, the use of ICL technology revealed a potential reduction in energy consumption of 30%, equating to potential savings of over 4.75 million Singapore dollars.
This was a very interesting project that shows, when we are saying about each of the sustainability KPIs, this is the process that has to be taken care of, and these are the steps that you have to take to know exactly where you're heading. Another case study that is very interesting because it has a community engagement in real time is Trent Basin, and let's look at that.
So this is the digital twin for Trent Basin. Trent Basin is a project that we did with the University of Nottingham. And the goal of the researchers and the architects was twofold. First of all, they wanted to engage the people, the residents, the people that live in the community. And second, they wanted to study the behavior, trying to understand really how people use their apartments. In order to satisfy the first goal, they decided to create this digital twin that's actually shown on a 145 inches touch wall that people can interact with, so they can check properties of the various buildings or the various properties. And the way to satisfy the second goal was to fill all the apartments, all the homes with several sensors, so that actually the data could be collected and the researchers can actually do the analysis. Now we can see, for example, that each one of these objects is, as we've seen in the other case study, this is a 3D interactive model. This is also geolocated, as you can see from the ground map. Now the user can actually touch all these elements of this object and see some properties. Now the reason why you don't see any more properties here is, of course, for privacy reasons. But if we look at one specific building, this is the show apartment, then we can see that actually there is additional data that is associated to this building. And this is not only static data, this is also dynamic data. In this particular case, we are showing the temperature in the main living room during the last month. And we can just choose the period we want to show the temperature. But not only we can see prop data about the properties, we can actually see also aggregated data. In this case, now we see information at site level now. So we have the solar panel outputs for the last week, we have the current state of the battery, and we also have what percentage of the total electricity for the site was provided by solar panels during the last week. We can also have additional information. We can have the total energy consumption for the site. This data can be also post-processed, so that, for example, we can calculate the average use intensity and compare it with the average in UK. There's also additional information that can be collected, not only data that is coming from building management systems, from smart meters, from Internet of Things. We can also connect it to web services that still produce time-dependent data. In this case, we are showing weather that is coming from a specific web services. With digital twin is not just about buildings, though. Digital twin is about any device that is present on site. In this case, we have the solar panels. This is the solar a solar farm installed on site, and the solar farm installed on site is supplying electricity via a battery. At the time the project was built, this was actually the largest Tesla battery in Europe. Okay, so this is what the digital twin looks like. As we've seen in the other case studies, this is a model that can be shared between users. And the digital twin always has different aspects. It's never only at visual at the 3D representation. But of course, that's the starting point. Now, the starting point, we can see the starting point here. So this is, again, an ICD model. ICD is a plugin for SketchUp that shows how the building is actually, how the 3D model is actually built. In this case, the data, the geometry was provided by the architect. It was simplified by us, and each of this building was converted in a quite simple way in a semantic model. So behind each one of these models, we have an object, we have some properties, and behind each one of this building, we have a full-fledged image model that can be used for simulation. We can analyze that, we can check what the properties of these buildings are, and we can see there are a combination of the typical parameters for the buildings, but also a series of custom attributes. Now, this part is important, but also in order to build a digital twin, we want also to connect to the actual data that is coming from the site. This is what the second tool does. This is a time series database that can connect to any source of time series data. For example, building management systems or Internet of Things or any web services that is available. In this case here, we can see that all the sensors in the various apartments and the solar panels, they've been organized by plot name. In particular, there's a feature in the tool that allows to tag some channels, so that makes the organization of the information much simpler. In this case, we can see that we are showing, for example, for 2019 in April, the temperature. One thing that is obvious is that sometimes there are data gaps. This is something that is very difficult to avoid every time we are talking about operational buildings. We can compare not temperature, but also it's interesting because we are building a digital twin. We want to combine simulated building, virtual building with real data. That's why in the same plots, we're actually collecting also data about the simulated building for the same period. For example, here we can show the temperature of this building with the temperature of the corresponding virtual model that at this moment, please notice, has not been calibrated yet. So of course, it has some differences. Now, an obvious problem is, of course, to combine now the readings from the BMS data from the Internet of Things with the actual 3D model. The software allows, as a feature that allows users to establish some rules that simplify the process of matching time series data, so readings from a specific sensor in a specific location, to a 3D model.
So this is very interesting to see. We have other case studies, but I feel like I don't want to go into detail. There is another thing that I can show, but I won't go into university campus decarbonization. I want to show you its ESG dashboard. So after doing all of these things for this project, because we have the real representation of each of the key performance indicator, environmental, social, and governance, we would be able to have it as part of dashboard and actually obliged by the regulatory rules that is there to be actually assessed. So to sum everything up, digital twin in general is very useful for defining and tracking KPIs, including the ESG one. That could be from portfolio, and it can communicated via the cloud-based interactive dashboard. So this incorporates energy, water, waste, social, and health, well-being, and you name it. And I feel like this actually it shows that this de-risk decision-making and was very helpful for decarbonization strategy. I don't want to take more time to go into the detail. I would leave it to the question and Alex to have more interactive conversation rather than me speaking. Thank you.
Thanks, sorry, Sadaf. Was that an invite for me to come back in, or are you still?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was a really fascinating presentation and quite possibly to a number of us watching, some new information and information at a very high level, I would say, which is great, because often when we are working in in our organizations, particularly across public sector organizations, and looking at schemes, it tends to be, our master planning tends to be concentrated either in a relatively small area or perhaps a sort of a larger regeneration area, but they tend to be scheme by scheme. And actually what you've kind of illustrated is this holistic approach, which encompasses a range of different things. There are some questions that have appeared in the chat, and I'll kind of run through a few of them, and then I've got a couple myself. But if I'll just jump to Greg Keeling's question, and what he's trying to understand around digital twinning are the benefits that would give his local authority, and actually, if you were invited into a local authority setting, where would your starting point be? And I suppose he's probably got his eye on the price. So fundamentally, yes, there is. I know you're about to say, well, there is a benefit to the cost of our services to provide this, but in reality, where would you start? And roughly speaking, is this kind of thing on a local authority setting, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, several million? Where does this fit within the sort of business planning process for a local authority?
Very interesting question. Actually, we have done projects with local authorities in Scotland, in many places around the globe, Singapore to be exact. Those are not local authorities. They would call like mayoral office or other names, but the concept is more or less the same. To be honest, we are just a licensing. So you just buy the license, you can get trained, you can use us as consultancy, and you're good to go for your own benefit. So we could, it dependent on what is the skill set level in your organization. We can just train you to use it yourself. We can do one consultancy project and then train you to go forward. And in the matter of pricing, generally speaking, when you do shallow retrofit within 1 year, you get 100% more than 100, usually it's 110, which is not that different from 100% of return of investment. But at the end of the day, it's like buying any licensing and using the training and consultancy. So our prices is not massive, and the reduction of your energy bills, water bills, the gaining what you are going for the sustainability roadmap you have is much bigger than the price you're paying. So we are actually considered in the bigger spectrum a very cheap technology to be incorporated. If you want, please be in touch. I have shared my email. Just our team would be able to give you a rough idea of what we mean. We can show you many projects that have been implemented in local authorities. And I think the benefit, I'm not saying ours, I know we are very good in it. That's why I joined this team. But I don't want to say anything commercial mainly. I feel like what we are providing, and that's the reason I'm part of this, we are doing a very good job to make sure you reach where you wanted to go, and we make it very easy for you. So maybe before there were 3 people in your organization building a spreadsheet, but now just one person can do it, and that is a very cost-effective investment, I would say.
Okay, thank you for that. Just to answer Richard Daniels' question, because I can answer that without having to refer to you, ICL is Intelligent Communities Lifecycle. I'm hoping you'll validate that. So hopefully, Richard, that clarifies that for you. One of the things that struck me during the presentation, particularly around the concept of ESG and environment, social and governance, certainly within local authorities, tend to fall within separate areas of work within a local authority, possibly different directorates and different governance structures. So within that, what I've seen in my experience, and perhaps what some of the people watching may well have seen as well in their own organizations, are that those 3 different aspects compete for priority against one another, rather than sitting there as a sort of a holistic sort of mechanism. So I guess within that, what advice would you give to sort of local authorities about how to pull these things together? Because they compete for different funding streams, they compete for the same funding streams just against one another. And actually, I think what you're advocating here is that these things have to be aligned as a single entity in order to make them work. But how would you kind of go about advising that?
I generally think that local authorities are changing as well. I used to, 12 years back, I was in urban planning and design organization called BDP. So I have looked at how local authority was dealing with a specific master planning project. And now looking 12 years, 10 years after, how the process inside local authorities is changing, I would say I'm seeing a major improvement. Because at the end of the day, technology is changing the way we are all living, and it's changing that. But I feel like, in general, all local authorities have a sustainability roadmap. And I feel like if whatever we are doing could be below that umbrella. So there is a strategy, then there is a corporate strategy to make this happen. There is a client strategy to actually define what sort of project you want to go after. And I think the ESG is part of that idea. So if there are like 3 different directors in local authority, each of them in charge of different things, they can sit together in a panel, discuss what is their roadmap, what are the risk factors associated to that, and then define this framework. And because ESG or these framework needs to just be reviewed once a year, but you need to have a real-time information, then every 3 months you can sit down, look at the data stream, understanding what is your situation, and tweak your strategy on basis of what you want to gain in the next 9 months to reach to the goals you want. That's something that I would propose in the bigger perspective.
Okay, thank you for that. Philip Jordan was referring to a slide around buildings of the future, and it showed the 4 categories where you had sustainability, you have resilience, you have sort of the people-centric elements at the bottom of that. And his point in the chat is really, are they not all just subheadings of sustainability? If the whole agenda of this is sustainability, then rather than separate categories, are they subheadings? So why have you kind of broken them down into sort of equal prominence?
Actually, you're right. If you look at sustainability, you can say if a place is people-centric, it can sustain itself for the longer future. But these names now hasn't been used exactly as it has to be used. When we say sustainability, unfortunately, we only mean energy, water, carbon, and that's why they're under that name. You're right. All of these 4 mean sustainable. If you're not hyper efficient, you're not sustainable because you're not going to sustain. But mainly, instead of sustainable, we should have said resource efficient, then resilient, hyper efficient, and people centric. Then in that case, all of these are the building of future or sustainable buildings.
Okay, all right. No, thank you for that. Hopefully, Philip, that answers your query there. And I suppose just a couple of sort of quick notes of my thinking as you were going through your presentation. On the digital twinning aspect of it, and when you're sort of master planning and predicting the future of a development, for example, is the digital model taking into account, sort of forecasted changes in efficiencies and technologies that are coming through? So whereas you can just take the BIM model and you can adapt what's in there and model that out with a set of assumptions, are you actually also considering the integrations of things that we don't really know yet, the sort of, the efficiencies in technologies in sort of 10, 15 years time? And is that playing into the forecast of the efficiency of the site that you are looking at for the digital twin?
This is a very good question. I would say in our R&D team, we do things as such. But in our, and the funny thing is, our R&D team builds stuff and then we put it as part of the plugin in the current technology. So in that, we are looking at the specific things. For example, there is a brick metaphor for in IT infrastructure, how that can change the way that artificial intelligence is changing building simulation. But when it comes to the models that we are dealing with, we are not using it for our own clients, because if you want the truth, nothing major is changing as much during the next 10 years to change that. What is changing is we would know that the chillers, these are, because we have been partnering with many big organizations like Mitsubishi, these organizations who know their product. We know that what is this product would be in the next year or 2 years, but we can't say exactly what is happening 10 years now, and we haven't done that in the commercial side.
Okay, and I suppose the other point I was sort of reflecting on as you were going through your presentation is that I suppose, given all those points of integration of a working site, so you've got your digital twin, and it's taking real-time data out of the existing entity and the entity as it's being developed out, and you're scanning that and you're manipulating that, you're looking at it and you're analyzing it through the dashboard that you show. I suppose there's two parts, one of which is if a component of the data goes down, i.e. we've all sort of seen with solar panels, for example, if they need constant maintenance regime, and actually if one of the connectors starts to dysfunction a little bit, does that skew your, do they start to skew the results a little bit? And I suppose the other point is that how secure is the data set that we are looking at to make sure that actually, my not that he could do this, but my very intelligent 13-year-old boy couldn't necessarily hack in and start playing around with some of the data in there, giving us a different set of results.
For that specific reason, we partner up with Microsoft Azure. So we are using their cloud system, which is very, very accurate. It's very secure, and whatever we are having as clients' information is part of their cloud. We sign an NDA, we sign contracts. We even ourselves, if we are part of the project, we are looking at it, but we don't even use that information. If we were using this information, we would be a unicorn company. And the idea that we are doing very well in what we are doing, but the founding instruction of our organization is we do not want to actually manipulate any data. We don't even want to use the data of our client. We want to be this safe haven that you can only use what you want and make sure no one else has access to that. So to be honest, if we even use one part of our data, we would have not been like that. We would have been like Microsoft Azure, these sorts of organizations that make money by selling data.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's very helpful. Thanks for that. And just coming back to the polls that we started, that you asked about at the beginning. So just looking at that, actually, we had a situation where I think the results were that 60% of people who have responded knew very little about ESG. 40% see ESG as important going forward. Actually, possibly, if we were looking at that now, knowing a little more, I wonder whether the second bit would end up as a slightly higher figure, just purely because I think people understanding how those elements come together. And I suppose this is a multi-layered tier, isn't it? That actually, if you get the ESG bit integrated and right at the start, the other bits can follow. Unless you've got that foundation, that building block at the beginning, it's going to be very difficult for people to really understand the fundamental building blocks of which they're building the system. So it's been really interesting. There we go. Suddenly the polls are back on. Thank you, Fiona, behind the scenes for reinserting that. And interesting, the number, we know a little more about ESG, but actually the numbers go about it being important going forward has declined a little bit. So different to what, assuming, but however, I'm not sure everyone's responded quite yet. So we shall see. Sadaf, Askari, thank you so much for being our presenter this morning, and thanks to those who have been watching. Hopefully you found it interesting, informative. I know I certainly have. We would like, on behalf of the Spaces, to thank our sponsors again, Atkins, Faith and Gould, IES, the MPS Group, and Wilmot Dixon for their support. And there is another poll that's just been put up on your screen. And if we could ask for you just to take a few seconds before you click log out, just to answer the feedback questions on the screen on a scale of 1 being poor to 5 being excellent, how you would rate this webinar. And just a gentle reminder that all the webinars over the 2-week period are being recorded and will be loaded to the Spaces YouTube channel, and delegates and Spaces members will be sent a link at the end of the conference. And just to note that those recordings are only available to delegates and Spaces members. But hopefully it's been a really interesting session to listen to. Sadaf, thank you so much again for your time and the effort that you put into the presentation, and your colleagues have put into the presentation as well. Really fascinating, and thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's a pleasure to be part of this. And thank you for all the sponsors, to Fiona, Alex for actually moderating this talk, and all the participants that actually take time to listen to what I have to share.
Thank you very much.